Welcome to the Bladder Cancer Canada podcast. I'm your host, Summer Stewart, volunteer with Bladder Cancer Canada. As the first and only Canadian patient advocacy organization dedicated to bladder cancer issues, Bladder Cancer Canada is proud to provide patients, their caregivers, and families with the support and resources they need to navigate a bladder cancer diagnosis. Through patient support, awareness, and research, our vision is to create a world where bladder cancer is just a memory. While Bladder Cancer Canada strives to support Canadians in their diagnosis and journey, we hope that anyone listening from around the world can benefit from these discussions and know we support you too. As a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended for medical advice. If you need medical information, please speak to your physician. So today we welcome Ron Cole to discuss his bladder cancer journey. Hi, Ron. Thanks for joining the Bladder Cancer podcast.
Thank you. Part of my mission, I think. This is for the listener, you and me. Our mission here, our one objective in this interview is to you, the listener right now listening. And I've given this a lot of thought. Summer's done a lot of great volunteer work. And we really hope that this interview gives you some information, some solace, some tricks that can help you, your life be a little bit better. I didn't want the interview to be like a one-on-one between Summer and myself, make it sound like you're at a coffee shop, eavesdropping on somebody talking. I like it like, imagine you've invited us to your house and you sat us down at the kitchen table and invited us for a tea, and we want to keep you in the conversation. I want to go across everything that's happened. Some of it is the literal medical decisions I've made, but also the epiphanies that I've had during it, the highs and lows, and some of the stories, some of the funny stuff. And I figure I'll give you my story chronologically from start to finish. To give you a quick introduction of myself, I'm 62 when I got the treatment done. Male, ex-contractor, retired now, 5'7", 155 pounds, basically in shape. Teach skiing, do yoga, sailing, a lot of those things. So in a fairly good health. And then, of course, this diagnosis was a surprise. I'm curious to who the listener might be. I'm imagining somebody probably just diagnosed with this and just got a ton of bricks dumped on them, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and they're weeding through tons and tons of information, and it's confusing and scary, and you don't know what to do. It could be a family member hoping to pull up information to help their loved one. It could be a close caregiver. I hope I can give as much information. I won't do anything less than my best. So that's that there. So I'm imagining at the kitchen table. I would like an oolong tea if you've got any in the cupboard. I think that's a nice way to do it. Some scones, maybe.
The kettle is on.
The kettle is on. Thank you. So there's a quick one on me. So basically, the quick thing is I had a large tumor, 5 centimeters, micropapillary, which is rare, aggressive. Turned out probably to be invasive. I'm not 100% sure. I had the TURBT, which was the removal of the tumor, and then I chose chemotherapy, which was 4 doses of it that took 2 months, and radiation for a month. And I'm all clear, and I'm actually feeling better than I did before, both physically and also mentally, spiritually, psychologically. So I'd also like to go over that too, because there's a lot of life lessons and deep, profound things I've learned as well as just dealing with and finding meaning in it.
Right.
So last May, I started having blood in my urine. I was camping with my wife. I had low energy. It was tough. We're out canoeing Thousand Islands in Ontario. And it was starting to hurt a little bit too. So I had the fatigue. Even just lifting the canoe, bringing it to the water was tough. And I said to her, I'm peeing blood. It's been about 3 weeks or so. I assumed it was an infection that would probably clear up, or maybe just a trauma, from slamming it on my penis in the car door, but it wasn't either of those. It's funny, as men, you're always trying to protect these things your whole life, and then when they start going a little bit wonky, it's a little hard to face that something might be going wrong with your plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
So this links with me going to the emergency clinic north of us. I'm an hour and a half north of Montreal, and when you go into the emergency clinics, you can wait for hours. I also asked my wife if there's any suggestions she would have for caregivers or the support team, personal support team. And one of them, you send someone off and pack a lunch, pack some books, pack comfortable cushions and stuff, because sometimes the waiting is always hours in
Yeah.
these clinics when it's just general. And if you come in for, let's say, what you think is an infection. So I went up there. We go to a smaller regional hospital, even further north of us, which basically probably about 2.5 hours north of Montreal. And I arrived there, and there's a bit of a line there. It's too long. So I turned around. It's nothing. It's nothing. I turned around. I'm driving through the little town there of like a few thousand people. And I called my wife and said, Elise, the line's too long. I'm heading back. And she said to me, if you come back here without seeing a doctor, I'm changing the locks on the door.
Oh, yeah.
And, and I go, grumble, grumble, now grumble, grumble. And I turned around. I knew she was right. And I turned around. It's really strange because we feel like our parents have been the same way, where the dad will go in for heart things. Oh, it's nothing. He doesn't go. It's frustrating. And here I am, who's made fun of, let's say, my father-in-law or whatever, my father not going, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm not wanting to go and have something checked out that I'm worried about subconsciously.
Right.
And maybe it's more of a man thing. I don't know, but
Well, I mean, this is common in men's health, right? Is kind of like,
yeah.
oh, it'll go away. Women, I think, are a lot more prone to talking about things that are happening
Mm-hmm.
and talking things out, right? Men really aren't talkers. So was
Mm-hmm.
it the fear of what you were going to find out, or was it just the waiting aspect of it that
I've
was
waited there
tricky?
many times, like 6 hours and that. I've brought all kinds of food and cushions and podcasts and books. I'm used to waiting that. So it's not the real reason. Subconsciously, not in my logical mind, subconsciously, I just didn't want to have it checked out. I guess I was worried.
Right.
I did not realize that was part of my psyche, but it was. So that was the advice there. So they found no infection. So luckily, right there in that small hospital, they said, "Oh, I'm going to send you for CT scan right away." Got it done, and then went home. And it was still I was still bleeding a week later. Heard nothing from the hospital, so went back up a week later again, and this time no problem waiting. And there at the same time, another doctor say, "Oh, we found a tumor in there, a 5 centimeter tumor, a large tumor in your bladder." I said, "Oh my gosh!" But I'm actually glad to know reality. I don't know why I wanted to turn around at first. And a side note, a friend of mine, she said her uncle kept delaying to get it checked out, and he missed the boat and is no longer alive. So luckily, my wife decided to threaten to change the locks on the door, because later on it turns out that my cancer is quite aggressive and quite fast.
Right.
I'll get to that a bit later. So they got those results. They sent them to a bigger city south of here, which is probably just 20 minutes north of Montreal, and to the larger regional hospital there. And basically, this is when the wait started. Now, it's like that song, "The waiting is the hardest part."
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody listening finds that part where you've got waiting and you're the unknown, and it just eats at you. It's tough because nothing's happening. Why is it disturbing me? So that was maybe June, maybe July, my last. And I finally got a sit down meeting with the urologist August 1st in Saint Eustache, north of Montreal.
So
So
about
that's
2 months
between,
later.
yeah, waiting,
Wow.
not knowing, and still having blood peeing and getting more and more, moving more towards peeing out direct cranberry juice
Oh my
color,
goodness. Okay.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
interesting.
I got my first cystoscopy on the 16th of August, 15 days after meeting the urologist. And so there, I'm still peeing. And at the same time, my son's having his wedding on the 31st.
Oh
And we're
no.
preparing the house. I'm building a deck, and I'm a general contractor. I know how to put up a deck. It's one of the easiest things to build. And I was so drained of energy. I couldn't even mentally figure out the square to
Oh,
to lay out the blocks for the foot, to create the plan.
right.
And to try and do any work there, I was so sapped. The best I could do is be on my hands and knees, pick up a nail, and knock in a hammer, a nail one at a time. And sometimes I had just to stop, and being on all fours, just hammering. It felt like the gravity of the earth was double, triple. I just felt like just flattening and just lying on the deck. And I'm preparing for a wedding, a really important thing. And that was tough. And then walking to the woods and peeing some more blood, into the woods, coming back to the deck. So that was interesting. An interesting part was I found that while all this has happened to me, I think I had like a healthy level of disassociation where these things are happening to you, but you're kind of going, that's interesting. Look at this peeing blood. That's kind of interesting. Oh, I've got no energy, but I wasn't losing my emotionality to it. I seemed to have a very calm demeanor, which I found interesting. This is another piece of advice. If you can have a healthy sense of detachment, you can make it through. Sort of observe yourself going through the pain, but don't be in the pain. Don't be the pain. Don't be the suffering. Don't augment the suffering.
Right.
Just watch it at its base. I'll step aside to like another, like a construction metaphor. I'll have probably another one as well too coming up. I work with my brother on the site. He's a much more dramatic person than me. And a number of times, we struck, different times through our career, we've struck our thumb with a hammer, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows how that feels. Have you done it?
Oh,
No,
I've done
you
it.
didn't?
Yes. And I've stepped on a hammer
Well,
too. Me and hammer are very familiar.
it's it's like the Bugs Bunny thing. You step on the rake and hits you in the head. My brother, for example, being a dramatic person, he would hit his on the hammer, go like this, yell it out, and then his thumb is throbbing. Ah, ooh, ah. But there's a point where there's the direct pain on you, and then there's a point where you dramatize it, and he would be one to dramatize it.
Right.
So you can see suffering is what it is as a base level on your body, and then there's how you deal with it, and try not to over dramatize it. At points where when I was urinating, it was so painful, it was extremely painful, but only for maybe, if I looked at my watch, oh, that's about 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds. So 45 seconds, maybe a minute, the extreme pain. After that minute's done, it's gone. So good, forget about it. You know what I mean? But don't belabor the point.
I think that a lot of people do rationalize in their mind that it's 30 seconds of pain. Just get through it. It'll go away eventually. This is something I'll get through, right? And
Mhm,
when
mhm.
symptoms get worse and worse, I think that's where you need to go to see the
Yeah.
physician because as we've been told so many times, and I know our listeners know this, is that early detection is greater chances of survival, right?
Yes. And even let's say the peeing blood isn't extremely painful. It's just something that maybe should psychologically cause you some pain. Say, ooh, something's happening here.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel okay. I'm not feeling pain. Well, look, there's still this great indication.
Right.
And I must say that people I think that have bladder cancer were sort of the luckiest cancer patients out there because we get a chance at early diagnosis. The warning comes up early.
That's right.
So
That's right.
that's a positive there.
So you went in for
Um,
a cystoscopy in middle of August, and then what happens after that?
27th, I got my TURB, which is the removal of the tumor.
Okay.
So cystoscopy, 16th of August, then 27th of September, I get the removal of the tumor. That was tricky. That's probably the start of various periods of challenge, I must say. I think I was scheduled for no, an hour because it was large. The anesthesiologist was asking me lots of questions, trying to figure out what my doses might be. I was supposed to be just I don't think I pronounced this right. Anesthetized? Did I get
Yep.
it right? Just an epidural, and then just a sedative just to make me relax. So I'm there, and then next thing you know, I wake up in the recovery room. It's late at night. The place is empty except for a couple of nurses, and I'm having a hard time coming out of it. I'm shaking and shivering. The machine's doing a beep, 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 like
Yeah.
in all the movies. My wife is there with me, and the nurses come start throwing blankets on me and everything. I'm losing temperature. I'm sort of convulsing and shaking, and all through this, I'm saying, I'm sorry, excuse me, sorry."
Oh,
Well, it's kind of ridiculous, but I had a hard time coming out of it, and it kept me for a while. So got the ride home. The ride home was pretty rough, and even home, I get in and I kind of fall to the floor in the bathroom, just convulsing and shaking. My wife thought I was overacting a bit, but no, I just couldn't stop it. So it was a very rough coming out. I think they had to medicate me a lot more, probably because the operation was a lot more profound than
right.
it was expected to be. As a side note, afterwards, when talking with my urologist, he said, "Well, I've removed X amount that I could, but I didn't want to go too far because if it's not invasive, I don't want to let loose the cancer into your body." So I think it turns out that he did an excellent job, very delicate, very fine hands to do that and not have, because I think it turned out to be invasive after all. So
Okay.
he did, I think, a superb job there, and because that could have been done wrong and things could have been let loose. So that was that. Then looking down to see a large catheter out of your penis too. That's another thing. Like I said, boys spend their whole time protecting this stuff, their whole
Mm-hmm.
life, and then you see something. psychologically, that was really tough to see a large catheter come. There's different sizes, and that was a large one because it had to be large enough to allow the debris to evacuate. So
Right.
at various times you're evacuating the remnants of your bladder and your bladder tumor. And so because the operation, the in and out, where is abrasive to the inside of your urethra, and so it's worn raw, and a catheter kind of floats within you, back and forth. So that's going back and forth and abrasive. Yeah. My family usually, when we go to see the clinic, they say, "What's your pain on a scale 1 to 10?" We're always tough, tough people. What we say is a 5, other people say is a 7, or an 8. Well, I could say that this was like a 9 to me,
Wow.
And then you've got the bag on the side. You're trying to deal with this, and it's not something you're used to, being an athletic, healthy person, to deal with all these things. There's a lot of people that are used to this after years having various bags. So that's mentally strange. It was extremely painful that whole week.
And
I was supposed to come out in
did you
two.
receive pain management support on that?
Yeah, I think there was various pain relievers and I've lost track of the amount of medications I've had, but I've usually taken less than I need to, and probably just general pain relievers. There might have been a cream or something, I don't recall. But
Okay.
after the first week, I said I can't bear this any longer, so I drove back up north, 30 minutes to that little small regional hospital, to the clinic there, and say I can't bear this anymore. I think there's an infection. So they check it. No, no infection. Oh, okay. So he said, well, it's probably the catheter. I think we can downgrade to a smaller size catheter because maybe most of the debris has gone out. So they do that there, and there's a nurse. But at a point there with the pain hitting the number 9, okay, this comes. So they give me another one, and then the nurse says, "Oh, you're using this bag. No, you're supposed to use a night bag." Oh, I had one that's on my leg. Oh, so I get this night bag. Why didn't they tell me at the first hospital? But I get home. Of course, her advice was wrong. So I'm trying to deal with having you lie down when you're sleeping, and the pipe is coming out of your penis and going into a bag sort of on the floor. And I couldn't get the hang of this. And you clip this and clip that. I'm in extreme pain. It's like my penis on fire. And then at some point, the connection, I screw it up, and it squirts urine all over me in the bed.
Oh no.
And then at that point, but that was kind of good, because at that point I look up and I say, "Okay," up to the sky. I say, "You gotta be kidding me." And I said, "This is okay. That's too much." And I start laughing, because see, it just cracks you. You're trying to hold your S together. I'm trying not to bleep. I asked you if you had a bleep button on your podcast day, so I'm not gonna try to swear. But you're trying to hold your S together, and then something just pushes so far it cracks your composure, and you just start to laugh, and it's a healthy surrender. You know,
Yeah.
there's a difference between giving up and surrender. Surrender is a willful decision. You know, giving up is demoralization. So to surrender, that, okay, I'm going to surrender. This is okay. I can't control this. This is nuts. I'm telling you what happened. I'm actually telling this because I want you to understand, if you hit the listener, hit some of these periods, I've gone through it too. And if it sounds like you're the only one, like, some of this is ridiculous,
Yeah. You're not
but
alone. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm sharing actually what happened to me. So after that, so that would be about that October 2nd. So I had my TURB September 22nd, October 6th or so. I removed the catheter, and then I got a call October 15th. You see, this is another long wait in my mind, wondering. I wasn't able to speak to my urologist since the TURB. I woke up, the nurses couldn't tell me what was done. They didn't know. I couldn't get calls. I couldn't get through to the clinic. This in this region, like just north of Laval, there's only 2 urologists for the entire area. I don't know what the population is,
Yeah.
200,000 maybe or so.
Doesn't seem like enough. Doesn't sound like enough.
It isn't it's not their he actually said it's the apocalypse, like, because he is also going through, there's a waves, where there's a lot of demand and lower demand. So when I saw him, he said, "It's like the apocalypse out here." I'm not faulting him for that and the system, but when you get into the actual people doing the work, of course, you've heard this on all the other podcasts, how everybody they've met, amazing,
Yeah.
uh, working in a difficult situation. So I understand, So it calls me, and I'm just driving somewhere. I remember this quite well. I was in the pickup truck, rural area. I got the call. "Oh, it's my doctor." Stop the truck, pull it over, pick up the call, and this is the first time he actually said the word cancer. And he said, I better give you a call because you haven't been heard for a while. We've sent your sample to the McGill Cancer Center for biopsy, and I still haven't got the results yet. So I think I've got to give you a call by now, at least to tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
And I remember that's when it hit me, because that's the first time cancer was mentioned. They're all just saying tumor along the way, and we're being hesitant, of course, because they hadn't had a firm diagnosis. And that was a sinking feeling.
Yeah.
Then about a day or so ago, my wife said to one of her friends, "Oh, it's been sent to the McGill Center." Says, "Oh, if they sent it there, that means they see something that's a bit worrisome. It's not just basic." I go, "Oh, wonderful! I'm special, I guess." Eh? Anyway, it comes back. It's a micropapillary cancer. It's supposed to be rare. That's often in breast cancer,
Okay.
and having the bladder is rare and highly aggressive. When I did meet with my doctor after he got that diagnosis, he says, "Okay, micropapillary, aggressive. We don't know if it was invasive or not. I recommend removing the bladder, seminal ducts, prostate, lymph nodes, repurposing part of the intestine for, I guess, a neobladder or something, and then you would have a bag." And that was another deep sink. When people give you that information, you just feel your whole body kind of sinks into the floor a little bit. Another side note: always bring somebody with you. Bring your personal support person. So my wife there, who makes good notes, because somebody could be telling you something and it doesn't hit you. You're in a daze a little bit. So the other person can actually listen closely, ask questions you can't think of, jot down the notes, and it's so useful. You've got to go in with somebody. Don't go alone. Okay. Even after my first cystoscopy, I was so shook up by that. It was traumatic, and I'm jittering. I'm coming out, and I couldn't even speak to my wife. Luckily, she's able to hold the conversations with the doctor and things like that. So that's another piece of advice. Then I got a PET scan. This is, I guess, October 25th. An appointment. They say, "Good news, cancer. The cancer's only in the bladder. It's not in the rest of your body." That's the one where they say it's good news. But then the bad news is I got to remove your bladder. That's a big one. So there's a big period of that's the big decision point right there. Big pivot point right there. And I have a lot of friends also in the alternative community saying, "Don't take chemotherapy, don't do radiation, don't do these things. They're difficult. Do this or eat that." I understand that there's faults in the medicals. Nothing's perfect, so I have a healthy skepticism. But this was urgent. Like the line that my doctor said, that we got to remove this, we got to remove it now, or I think we'll miss our chance, quote unquote. That's scary. So wow, if I take anything else, I'm rolling the dice. So I don't have time. Maybe I would have tried changing diet, to exercise a little bit if I had something that wasn't so urgent. But I made the decision to go with what's recommended, put my trust in the doctors, the medical system, and don't think about it anymore. Don't double think it. And that's it. Glad that I did. But my other big decision went against the grain, is to not do the removal of the bladder. And
The removal of the bladder. Okay.
yeah. Now that was a tough one. The second meeting I had was a high-end urologist at the McGill Center, and he also said removal. But he gave me the hard percentages, dropped them on me, which I appreciate. He said certain percentage of erectile dysfunction, 0% of ejaculation, incontinence possibly, this and that, percentage, all ugly sounding.
Mm-hmm.
Then he had to leave the room and take a call, and left us there with a nurse navigator. And it was just my wife and myself, and she's sitting there, and it's like, there's another, I didn't know there was another level to sink. So it's almost like I think he was thinking, he was begging me to giving me the agency to make a hard decision. I chose not to remove the bladder. I
Okay.
chose to take the risk. And is it pride? I don't know. Like, they wanted to keep my antlers working. I'm glad I took it, because right now, 100% the way I was before. Nothing's been removed. I'm healthy. I feel good. But it was a risk. And if I look back at it, that risk was a big one, and it was chancy.
Right.
And my son, who just got married, he said he was thinking I should remove it. He says, "Don't you want to see a grandchild or something?" Or I get choked up thinking of this, be a grandfather. That was a hard decision.
Yeah.
I'm glad I took it though. But is it pride? I don't know. I don't recommend, this is a very personal decision. And what I took, it's tough. But putting my mind in the point of view of a doctor, if I was a doctor and had somebody in the situation, I would push for the removal of the bladder, because you're preserving a life above all,
Right.
you know. So, but a lot of people live with that and they're going fine. Like a lot of the people in the podcast that have had that done, and they're sounding great. And I've listened to all of your other guys. There's another Ron in there too, I think, a podcast, and they're doing fine too.
They are.
Uh,
It's, and I think that's the big fallacy is that everybody thinks that it will be a step down from lifestyle, having to kind of step off of some hobbies and things like that. But as we've heard in other
yeah,
episodes, it really isn't that
yeah,
way. It's amazing how much you
exactly.
can preserve your quality of life. So it is a personal decision. There's been some great success stories.
I'm just trying to tell you what I went through, right and wrong, whether decisions I made good or bad. Luckily, mine turned out well. If it didn't, what the problem is with my situation there, if I chose to do the chemotherapy and the radiation, they said they will not be able to do the cystectomy. They would not be able to remove my bladder because that
Interesting.
option would be off the table.
Right.
Is what so that was a huge decision I took.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
another
Very
layer
risky, I
of
would say.
making that decision for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So all along, I guess I can count so many turning points which turned in my favor. It's incredible. It's like I'm being looked after, you know. Hopefully, like I'm saying, the reason I'm doing this podcast is I now have something that I couldn't offer anybody before. So that's for you, the listener. I wouldn't be able to give you this information and hopefully be useful to you if I hadn't gone through this. Some of the other that's some of the meaning and suffering.
Right.
So then next I saw, so I was upgraded to the Montreal Urban Hospital, the Cedars Cancer Center, because mine was urgent and dangerous. They kept telling me, "You're young and you're fit." And I said, "Geez, I got to get cancer more often. I've never been so well complimented in my life, you know. It's lately, you know. I'm getting all these great compliments at 62, and everybody's telling me I'm young and I'm fit." So figured I could probably do with and succeed through the chemo and the radiation. So meet with the oncologist and radiologist. This is another kind of fun point because one of the well, a number of the radiologists residents are Brazilian in the Cedars Center,
Okay.
and this guy is so enthusiastic. This fella, he says, "Oh, okay, we got," and he's there and he's talking and he's all positive and he's slapping my knee and stuff. And I said, "A doctor slapping my is this a doctor?" You know, so animated and encouraging. We've got some new studies showing that with cisplatin and radiate really helps increase radiation. We're having a lot of success in your situation of your cancer, and so I go from something that's I'm in the basement of depth and despair where I've been pulled down with this news earlier, and then I come to this guy who's all enthusiastic and says, Good news, we're finding some great results with this." And I'm going, "Oh, cool." And I'm just sort of confused, you know. Like on one
Yeah, yeah,
hand,
no
I'm all
kidding,
down,
right?
and on the other hand, I got this really excited, happy guy. And so, oh, that was good. That it picked me up. I went from the basement elevator to the penthouse elevator, and so cool. Okay, so that also helped me make the decision to go out the route of the chemotherapy, 4 different drugs, and then with the radiation afterwards. Oh, by the way, listener, my tea has gotten cold. Do you think you can mix me another tea? Do you have any scones? Like, remember, this is the kitchen table discussion. I got lost there.
I just
So
picked up fresh
hopefully,
scones and I'll put another pot on.
great. I'm loving this oolong. Oolong is supposed to be very good for your health. So I got my second camera done at the regional hospital. I think it was.
And was this
Yes, it
after or
was.
before you started your
It
chemotherapy?
This was before my chemo started. It's just the PET scan and me making the decision. And they did another scan at the hospital up in St. Jerome, north of us, on the 30th of October. Also, coming up after that is November 9th. I have a ski school meeting because I'm teaching skiing up at Mont Tremblant. And that's the start of the season ski school meeting, and everybody's excited. And there I'm sitting here. This is November 9th, just after hearing this and deciding what I'm going to be doing with my life. I told a few of my select friends that I had cancer, at that meeting, but not, please don't pass it on because I don't know where I'm going, what I'm up to,
Right.
But this type of diagnosis, they say, is probably maybe 2 years left to live, in the last year being pretty uncomfortable. So that's another strange thing too. I promised 20 days of skiing so I can, I get the pass and the privileges right there. So I'm wondering if, gee, I don't want to let anybody know that I can't make those, probably won't be able to make those 20 days, let alone any days, you know. But I found throughout the whole process, I was always I was optimistic about everything. Everything just seemed optimistic, and I kept finding that my optimism was a bit too optimistic, because things weren't always turning out the way I expected. But I'd rather be overly optimistic than too pessimistic and then be happily wrong. I'd rather be find out that I'm too optimistic and be corrected. But anyway,
Well, I think,
the
that's part of getting through it is a good attitude. I think people
Mhm.
who have a good attitude and who are optimistic find that the journey is not easier, but it's not so devastating. And I think people who focus in on being sick and the negatives, it really does weigh on you, additional weight. So I think positive
Yeah.
attitude really does make a big difference in your treatment journey.
100%. It's absolutely. It's not even a think. That's a fact. You know.
Yeah.
And also with that Brazilian doctor, I'm coming in. I got my notes. I'm doing this. I got an attitude. He says, "Oh yeah. Oh, you're gonna do well with that attitude. That's good." He says, "Oh, don't most people have this attitude?" Oh no, no, they don't.
Yeah,
No, they
no.
come in. They don't. I had that optimist. I'm gonna get this done. I'm gonna get through this. And he said the same thing you just said. He says it's a fact. The attitude will help you heal. There's a doctor, if you look up Bruce Lipton. I don't know if you heard of him.
No, I haven't.
I think he I think he's a microbiologist or geneticist, but he's basically saying the cells can sense fear and threat. The outer receptors will translate that to the inside of your cell, into all of the workings of the cell, and they will be getting this message that this is danger time. You know, batten the hatches, go inward. But if you have positive reception, it is releasing different types of elements which help with healing.
Right.
Bruce Lipton, he's fun to listen to. You can go through. This is what I found neat. Let's say skipping ahead to, let's say, radiation or any of this. You could look through the masses of people that are lined up for blood tests, waiting room, waiting to get treated, and a lot of them have their heads hung low. They're staring at the tiles. Their face is dropped. And out of that, you might see there's a pretty large waiting room in Montreal there. You might find two or three that got a spark and they're up there and the energy is coming out of them. And the greater the adversity, the greater they shine, you know.
Hmm.
Try
Hmm.
to be one of those. You can. You
Do
can.
you, do you find that having
It,
a good support in your wife helped you have a better attitude?
yes, certainly. But she wasn't being a cheerleader or anything. She just made everything around smoothed out a bit. Because any false joviality, it's false, you know.
Yeah.
She was just taking charge of stuff and making sure everything, like good support team would be, a good roadie for a rock star, you know. By the way, this is another side note I was going to say about, because as a part I want to talk about the aftermath, is when you're under treatment, you're the star of the show, you know. And
That's
there's a
right.
little positive in that, you know. Everybody's treating you special, and it's funny, once your treatment is done, it's gone, you know. So anyway, I saw my wife as, roadies, because she's driving, she's making sure the food's going well, the cushion's comfortable under me, there's a blanket on me, you know.
Yep. She's your
So
stage manager, never mind the roadie.
yeah, stage manager, roadie, the producer, yeah, everything. So yes, it's very important, which is really heartening, and the beautiful part of the humanity is seeing the support people with the suffering people, sitting there with them. If I'm in the chemo chair, and then you see the different people that are coming with somebody. It's rare that people went on their own.
Right.
Although when I got to the radiation phase, that I went on my own because that was pretty easy. So find that spark in there, because there's something immutable inside of you. What I found with myself, that I was surprised I didn't know I was so tough, because under that adversity, I had my wits about me. I had a sense of strength that I didn't know. That didn't break, and it's amazing. And this is the beautiful thing about hitting. This is the gift of cancer. This is what another patient told me. There's a gift of cancer. The neat thing about getting beat down like this to the edge of feel like you're a living dead person, you have to drop all of that, and all of your artifice outside of you melts away to reveal the true core self, which is almost cannot be shaken. You find, wow, there's a strength inside of you cannot believe.
Yeah.
So that's why it's good not to increase the suffering and dramatize all this nonsense. Just let it melt, let it break you down, and the strong divine part of you comes out, and then you can actually start to grow as a person. you will go around and you'll see in the treatment area, you'll see some people that spark,
Yeah.
and the harder things get, the more they shine. Be one of those people. You can do it. There's some points I could feel the cusp of losing hope. This is like during Christmas time. And I felt like the senile grandfather they roll out on a chair for Christmas. He's at the end of the table, but he can't really communicate. He's not with everybody. He's there. Everybody knows he's there. They kind of talk nicely to him, but he's kind of a looming darkness or something. I that was tough. And
Yeah.
I felt at that point it was the closest I ever felt to being like a living and dead person.
Yeah.
And I could feel that point where if you lose hope, that's what you got to guard against.
Absolutely. Hope
That's
is everything. It's the
that's
only
tough.
thing.
Yeah. And I still have made peace with being dead. That I'm not concerned about being or no longer being alive. It's just the who you leave behind and maybe the suffering between, because I do believe we're of a greater consciousness. And I'm probably going into too much into the spiritual at this point, but I guess I'm off track on that. But
You know what? I think
it's
everybody's got a spiritual component. There's so many
Mhm.
different religions and spiritual beliefs, and it's God as we know it, whatever
Yes.
we know it as, and it's a personal relationship. And I think that it's something that we haven't really spoken about on the podcast very much.
Mhm.
But it does come into play absolutely in these types of
Yeah.
situations.
And a base that can relate to anybody, let's say if they're Christian or not or of a faith, there is something beyond what we have right now in our life. We all feel a little bit that there's something beyond this. So
Right.
in the way of being physically reduced in your capacities allows you to maybe discover a bit more of that.
Yeah.
And I was draped over a beanbag. That's the only thing I could feel comfortable on. Like even to reach for a coffee was out of my ability during chemotherapy. And I just draped like I don't know, like a cat over a beanbag or something like this. And I just there's nothing valiant I can do. I can't even, I can't even listen to a podcast, listen to music, read anything, nothing. It's just every minute is an hour.
So you
And
got that
in
exhaustion side effect of the chemotherapy, the absolute
Yeah,
utter
and
exhaustion.
continual nausea, like your worst drinking binge you've had in your life, if you can imagine that. I don't know what
Ooh,
age you might have been, maybe it's usually young, and the next morning is rough,
yeah.
but the afternoon is it's kind of in between. You're just going, you're not sick enough that you can throw up. You're
You're
just that
just
little bit
nauseous and
after.
ugly
Yes,
feeling.
and
Yeah.
imagine that for a month long, or yeah.
You had mentioned you had 4 doses of chemo over a period of 2 months. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 month, yeah. 1 week, get it. Then you'd have a pause, and then the second week you have
So
another
did you
dose.
have any reprieve in those 2 weeks where you found that the chemotherapy side effects would dissipate so that you could feel a little bit normal before your next chemo treatment?
Yeah, well, yeah. At first, I got the first dose, and I thought, oh, this is no problem, piece of cake. This is my optimism, right?
Yeah.
But then I started to find out, and I put this on my calendar, my 2 week intervals. I wrote bad week, like that was 7 days right after my treatment. Second
Okay.
was good week, bad week, good week, bad week, good week. So right after the treatment that week, right after it was bad. And
Okay.
then the second week, I was manageable.
Okay.
Yet it became cumulative. So later on, my good weeks started to feel like bad weeks a little bit.
Okay.
So does that
Was there
answer your
was
question? Okay.
yeah, that does answer my question. And was there anything that you found useful to give yourself some reprieve from your side effects during your bad week during the chemo?
Yeah. Well, so I had 4 drugs, which I can list later, and then the next day they give you a shot for your bone marrow to produce white blood cells, right?
Okay.
That shot seemed to really done me in. So I felt really rough after. They prescribed me, I think, 3 medications to deal with the after effects. And I found they made me feel worse, or I can be wrong, but that was my opinion.
Okay.
So I stopped taking those. So that probably could have augmented my misery afterwards, the continual hangover.
And was there anything else that you did during chemo, like exercise? Did you change your lifestyle at all to help you with those side effects?
I changed my eating lifestyle. I ate more fast food, hamburgers, that's French fry cravings. I put on weight actually.
French fry craving. Well, that's a good thing going through chemotherapy. So,
I guess so. And my wife said, "Don't do that. We got to cut the sugars and stuff like this." And in the end, she gave up on that. Just realized I just trying to make it through the day. A friend of mine, also ski instructor, he got cancer too, and he advised me to say, no matter how bad it gets, you just say tomorrow's going to be better.
absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, Mind you, sometimes when I was draped over the bean bag, I'm there. Tomorrow will be better. Yeah, that's what I use for handling the chemo.
Okay. And then you did chemo and radiation at the same time, or did radiation come after?
Radiation came afterwards, so
Okay.
that was a lot easier.
It was a lot easier than the
Um,
chemotherapy. And was it
yeah,
just, it was in your bladder area that you received the radiation?
yeah. It was 5 days straight for 4 weeks, and that was February 3rd, March 3rd, and that's also. I just gonna. So I just go back a bit there, just a sec. I'm sorry. I had these double J's installed after the TURBD. They're like catheters that
Okay.
also go between your kidneys and your bladder. I started going back, but I think it's important for the listener to know.
That's okay.
Because they're also during the chemo and the radiation, they're concerned that it inflames that, and they don't want problems. The ureter is that pipe between kidney and bladder, not to be confused with the word urethra, which is from the bladder outwards.
That's right.
And that was painful too. If I went back to when I had the onset, when I had to urinate, it felt my back spasm would happen on both sides. Pretty painful. That would last like 30 seconds. Then it would dissipate. And then when the urine came out, then it felt like I felt like I was being beaten up by three mafia guys. So they finally got the double J's out in between the chemo and the radiation.
Okay. All right.
I thought I mentioned that because prepare somebody if you have a double J, it's a little catheter that goes up into towards your kidneys. The radiation being 5 days a week, we booked. My wife booked this spot in Lower Town, Montreal, and so it was not far from the hospital. And the idea was I'd maybe take the public transport to get to it. But in the end, I found walking was decent. It was about a 20-minute walk. And in the end, at least it was quite busy up north in Mont Tremblant. So a lot of the time I was there alone, which actually was beautiful. It was a wonderful like sanctuary. It was quiet,
So
and
you're walking to your radiation treatments in the snow. And how long did
yeah,
you do radiation for?
it was for a full month,
For a
five
full
days.
month. Okay.
Yeah, and that was fine. That was good, and the staff was great, and I think they enjoyed me as well too because I had a good attitude. I was just feeling joyous, and I'm glad all these people were treating me. I felt special about that. Things were looking good. I think, you still don't know though. You still don't know, you know.
Right.
And I'm meeting very interesting people and some real gems. Like everybody said, the caregivers, the volunteers, the doctors, the nurses, as everybody said in your past podcast, excellent.
Yeah.
So it was a full month during that time. The thing is, it started to come up upon when I was booked to teach skiing, and
Okay.
I thought, okay, I can do this. I go up and take a few runs. I found I can only do half a trail, and I'm wiped.
Right.
There's where I was out too optimistic, and the reality was, I couldn't do it. I did have to tell the school at some point, I'm really sorry, I just can't seem to. He said, guys, Ron, get healthy first. Stop worrying about,
We're amazed that you
your
showed up in
promises.
the first place, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One of my there's a few milestones I had during treatment that I was shooting for.
Uh-huh.
One was to teach some skiing. I did get one in a private lesson, and it was wonderful. This one from Mexico, and it was a wonderful lesson, and I felt so good. I did a good job at it. At the end, I had to said to her as I was choking up as well. I have to tell you, this was one of my most important lessons. I just finished cancer treatment, and one of my objectives was to teach a ski lesson. And I'm so glad it was you. You were just a perfect client, and it went wonderful. I gave her a
Oh,
big hug, and she gave me a big hug.
that's
And
great.
that was wonderful.
So you got to teach your last ski lesson. So that brings us
Yeah,
into April-ish then. We're looking at almost a year that we've gone through, your whole treatment of the year. So what happened after
yeah.
radiation?
Also, neat thing about radiation, the staff there can allow you to put the music on that you would like.
Oh,
And
neat. Okay.
another benefit, I got an excellent artist that's full of love and positivity. Is called Michael Franti.
Okay.
His music is from the heart. It's loving. It's good. It's energetic. And I have them blast that stuff. Like there's
Nice.
songs like "I'm Alive," and there's even songs that are touching beautiful. So the radiation was good that way as well too. I think when they did a cystoscopy, and they look at, and this is the first time I've been able to have the guts to look at the screen, because usually I'm in such pain. I look over and I see the inside of my bladder and I see a little bit of scar tissue, and he says, "It's all gone."
Wow.
And I go, "Wow." I could see the veins of the inside of my bladder. I'm looking at my body almost as a little separate entity, as this little organism. I go, "Wow."
Yeah.
And there's a large part of the after period, which a lot of people don't talk about. Like I've done art therapy and that. I was there actually just recently. It's funny because when I mentioned just that moment of getting the cystoscopy and finding, he says, "It's gone and there's no cancer anywhere else in your body." I'm pausing right now for words. It's hard to process, because it's like being a soldier that's been always on the battlefield, and he performs coolly and calmly and effectively during the heat of battle, right?
Yeah.
And then the war is over and he comes home
Not just the war
and
is
his
over,
hands are
but you find out that you won the war.
yeah, yeah. And for the moment being, who
Well,
knows?
yeah.
But yes, I'm still on guard, but you're still wanting to hold on to your rifle. And there's quiet, there's birds chirping, and you're still like, okay. And you have to keep telling yourself it's over. Yes, the battle is over. Then sometimes things can come apart. Then you can start processing what you've held. Once you held your S blank together
Yeah.
all through this time, suddenly it'll start to crack a little bit, and then you can start processing some of those things that you've, you know, smoothed over during all that time.
Well, you're in survival mode at that point, right? You have no choices, really. I mean, you go through the system
Mhm.
and your choices are
Yeah,
limited, right? So you kind of come to
yeah.
terms with what's happening. And I
You're
think that
along for the ride. Mhm.
absolutely you don't process it really a lot until you're out of it for a certain amount of time. Because when you look back, you think, wow, that was a lot. And then, you can start unpacking what that all meant and how you felt, how you dealt with it. But I can imagine that there is a time that comes where you just sit quietly and think, wow, I've been through a lot.
And also, it's not just even on the thinking level; it's a subconscious level that you're not even aware of, and that's what will surprise you when
Really?
that comes out. Yeah. We got our thinking level, but then we have the greater subconscious, and it's been doing a lot of the work below the surface. And so I had a very nice transition, but there's a large period of being in neutral where your engine is like just idling and you're not in gear. And for me, it's like just sitting out and just being completely happy with watching the birds and the squirrels at the feeder, and
Yeah.
just sitting in the chair and having a tea on my side, and I can just sit there peacefully, and I have this feeling I got to be doing something, I got to be moving, I got things to do. The old feeling of let's get into motion, let's get the life going,
Yeah.
is there in the background, but it's not as strong as it used to be. And the complete contentment of just sitting there, and realizing that this contentment and this being in neutral is not a doing nothing state. You are doing something in there. It's important. So don't just finish your treatment and then go bang back into the world. Do not do that. You're going to be missing a very important phase of the recovery, and also a large opportunity for growth. Those quiet moments, in those silent moments, is when you can solidify the evolution that's been started, been catalyzed by this trauma that you've gone through.
Right.
So you must take that time.
When I truly believe that's the real definition of self-care, I think, you can take a bath, get your nails done, your hair done, people have
Mhm.
this definition of what self-care is, but really sitting with the trauma, sitting with your experience, feeling it,
Mhm.
going through it, I think is really the big part of the self-care. So how long were you in neutral? Are you still in
At
neutral?
least a month. Good question. It's gradual. It overlaps, and it comes in waves back and forth. But I think it's at least a month of a contented sense of being happy doing nothing, which was still not something, right?
Right.
Easily a month. But also there is some waves of fatigue that does catch you, because it's supposed to take. I'm still being ambitious, trying to do things, and then wearing myself out. So physically also it takes a bit longer to recover from some of that stuff.
And how long did it
So
take? Do you feel that it took before you were feeling somewhat back to normal?
this morning I have various bouts of fatigue, and like I'm working on it now with nutrition as well and activity. few resources I would recommend. But I've also had a problem with fatigue before the cancer, kind of like
Okay.
a prolonged deep fatigue. I think I caught some virus early 2019 spring, and it laid me out. I wasn't even able to do my work. And I don't know if it's also a part reason, including sleep disorders, which
Okay.
these two things probably set the environment for a cancer to have space to grow. So some of the waves of fatigue up and down are similar to what I had before. But originally, out of the out of the treatments, I actually felt more energy, and I thought that I said to my wife, maybe this has cured my chronic fatigue problem. Although it has come back. I think I'm having more energy. I'm certainly feeling stronger and more energetic than I was pre-cancer, even like a year pre-cancer or 2 years pre-cancer. So that's good. I don't know if I can answer it definitively on that one.
That's okay. There's no
Yeah.
right or wrong answer. Sometimes there's no answer at all.
I'm also thinking that a small part of this is about bladder cancer. A larger part is about cancer in general. Actually, a larger part of it is about dealing with suffering and challenge. Through all of the suffering that I've gone through, if I can transmute suffering, like I say, my brother hitting his thumb and the hammer, instead of increasing the suffering, I'm good there. But if I can take and transmute suffering into good, then we're really kicking.
Cancer's butt. Yes.
Yeah, but but so thank you. And then you and I, Summer, that's what we're doing.
Now, how long ago has it been since your last treatment?
That would have been the beginning of March, I think. It's all a blur. Before I did this interview, I had to go back through my calendar and sort of jot all that I gone through,
A lot
and
of
it's
appointments, a lot
surprising.
of things going on. I know a lot of moving parts, and
Yeah.
that's probably part of the fatigue as well after is not having to
Mm.
show up for all these things, and not just show up, but also be prepared to listen, be prepared to make decisions. It's exhausting. I can imagine that's part of the fatigue as well. But
Mm.
was this 2024 or 2025?
Recover, yeah, 24 to 25, yeah. Oh, here I got it. March 3rd was my last radiation of
Mark.
this year.
And have you had anything else? I know you probably have had follow-ups, but how are things looking so far?
It's good because I've had, I think, two cystoscopies since then, and all showing things being great.
Okay.
I think I
And
had a
what's
scan showing there's no cancer anywhere else.
and what's the follow-up plan? Do you know from your urologist how long will you be followed? How often?
I'm not really clear in my memory. I think it's generally every 3 months, maybe a cystoscopy, and then it turns to maybe 6 months, and then yearly. And you followed probably about 5 years
Okay, so
in
you're
my
not
best
just
memory.
kind of released back into the wild once you get a clear bill of health. There is a follow-up plan, a very detailed follow-up plan to make sure that things are going smoothly.
Yes, yes. And I think that's the standard as well, too.
Yeah, I think that's a standard, but just so that, any patients or any listeners who are starting their journey know that there is, it is a follow through. You don't just get kind of, like I said, sent back into the wild. There is support there as well for after.
It's sent back in the wild. Visualizing that's funny.
It sure feels
See
like the
myself.
wild out here sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in a bit of the wild too. I'm lucky because I have forest, but nature also was another safe thing for me. Like out of the chemo windows, there's one little tree I could look at. If anything, I'm down or lost that. I'm not looking at anything man-made. I'm looking at something natural, tree, a plant. It could even be in your house. Just click with that.
Right.
It's healthy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, nature, super good. And for me, watching the birds, I don't know why it's so fascinating. If you have a pet, a pet can be so, so helpful.
Makes a big
Yeah.
difference. Absolutely. And I like that advice. Get out into nature, ground yourself with the earth. It is very therapeutic, whether that be through meditating or just walking, and fresh air is really good. I think these things that we really underestimate as being, medicine.
Yeah. So one of the doctors, the Brazilian doctors, recommended the book Outlive by Peter Attia. And I think the head radiologist gave it to all his residents. It's the writer studied a collection of 100-year-old or elderly athletes and to see the commonality there. So I'm trying to follow along with a lot of those. It's all common sense, basically. Exercise, and we don't do enough cardio. Like even as an elderly person, you do cardio, lift weights, walk all the time. That's for the physical part. Metabolic health. which is basically diet. So I got this other great book called Nutrivore. It's simple for anybody who doesn't know anything about nutrition. I know enough, but I'm really getting a lot out of it. So I'm trying to eat a wide variety of decent foods, and it's delicious. So that's what I'm doing, just because I am not getting left out into the wild and figure I'm going back to, expect cancer never to come back. So
Right.
I'm trying to do what I can to maybe make some changes, because I don't want to say that I'm cured and I'm done back to the old ways. I want to think that it's always lurking there. I will never turn my back on it. I will always be vigilant. So I'm going to make sure I take care of my health and my diet, my mental health, all these other things.
Well, Ron, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I hate to end it, but this is going to be a very long episode. Thank you so much. Please keep in
Thank you.
contact with Bladder Cancer Canada. We would love to do a follow-up show in the future, maybe on something a little bit different like we had talked about. I'll get in touch with you about that. But speak with us, listeners. Our oolong tea is empty and our scones are gone. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon here at the Bladder Cancer Canada podcast.
If you or someone you know has been diagnosed with bladder cancer, Bladder Cancer Canada is here to help with support programs, informative resources, and educational sessions. Visit us at bladdercancercanada.org to access these resources and to share your story. Be sure to follow us on X, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We will respond to messages sent on socials. If you are a bladder cancer patient or survivor and would like to share your story on the podcast, please contact us at info@bladdercancercanada.org.